We go through the newspapers now in the company of Liz Kershaw and the political editor of The Sun on Sunday, Mr. David Wooding. Lovely to see you both. And David, you say happy birthday to Her Majesty.
Yeah, so I picked the Daily Express here, that picture of Her Maj on the front page with the two ponies and the headline, Happy 96th Birthday, Ma'am. I quite like the magnolia bushes behind the back.
It's beautiful, yeah.
It's spectacular. The Express have done it well inside. They've done a spread as well, where they've done pictures of the Queen on various birthdays, including the first picture of her as a child. And it's often forgotten when we talk about the Queen. I mean, she's been part of our life, all of our lives since the day we were all born. That she was born as a minor royal because she was aged 10 when the king abdicated.
And this wasn't to be her destiny?
No, she would just have been a minor royal, and her father then took over the throne, and suddenly she was next in line to the throne. And hasn't she had an amazing reign?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we stay with the royal story, Liz, as we go to you. This is front page of the Daily Mail, and they're saying palace shock at Harry, and they call him the Prince of Delusion.
Well, I used to really like him. I used to think, of all the members of the royal family, I'd love to have a night in the pub with Harry. Mm-hmm. You know, it would be kind of wild. And I just thought he was strangely down to earth, but I don't think he can possibly be described as that now. I think he's up in the clouds. It's so changed. I thought what shocked me most yesterday, and it's picked up on in the papers, was when he was in this interview for TV, another kind of really indiscreet, disloyal interview, and he was asked about his relationship with his father, and he batted it off and he said, "Oh, I'm here to talk about the Invictus Games, not my family." And the next question was, "Do you ever think about your mother?" "Oh, onion from pocket. Yes, she's with me every hour of the day," you know. And I thought, well, there's double standards. It's such a PR machine that he's so much a part of now, and strangely being down to earth when you're a member of the royal family with all its money and privileges and status, and then going and living in California and losing that down to earth, natural attitude to life. He just seems completely self-obsessed, and he can't have any consideration. I would never have done what he's done to my grandma. You know, I could think if she'd been sat there and I'd left and then slagged off the family and she hadn't seen me she would have literally died of a broken heart. And I can't help thinking that the Queen's failing health is obviously something to do with her age, the death of her lifelong partner, the Duke of Edinburgh, but this can't help either, can it?
But, you know, I sometimes wonder if the Queen actually likes a naughty boy. I mean, the Duke of Edinburgh was cheeky. She loves Prince Andrew. Prince Harry's causing her headaches, but she just can't resist them. There's an argument to be said for it.
Poor William, it's so boring, he doesn't get lucky.
What's fascinating is the silence from Buckingham Palace and Kensington Palace. I mean, to say that he's there to protect his grandmother when he's living across the lake in America, and he's been there for 2 years and hasn't shown his face. I think the Queen needs protecting from him more than anybody else.
I read one phrase the palace wheeled out, one of the papers wheeled out in relation to the palace's response was weary consternation at yet another public interview. I thought that summed it up perfectly. Here we go again.
Do you really think he'll pitch up on the balcony, waving to the crowds within the fold?
No, I just can't see it. I can't see if he's got a forthcoming book on which he's going to be quite negative towards Camilla, Duchess of Cornwall, or, his father as well. And bear in mind, Charles becomes king of the castle when the Queen goes. And he better be very careful as to what side his bread is buttered or his royal title and everything else. But
I'd say is within every, kind of in his defence, but also just to make it a bit more interesting. Within every family, there are secrets. Yeah. Maybe there's one big secret that is Harry's ace card, that he knows, that they know, and we don't know. And that's the foundation of all that. Oh, David's suddenly nodding and got a twinkle in his eye.
What do you know that he knows that we don't know?
I'd like to find out.
David, let's talk about this Rwanda deal. A really interesting sort of reaction to this now. We've had upset from the Archbishop of Canterbury. Now it seems staff within the Home Office aren't on board with this deal and are threatening to strike over it.
Yes, there's quite there's going to be a Zoom call today with the Permanent Secretary Matthew Rycroft with the staff, and the Daily Mail have rather cleverly got hold of all the emails that have been flying around, and people are describing it, members of staff, as totally unethical, and somebody else even invokes the phrase used in the Nazi war trials in Nuremberg that we are only obeying orders, and other people saying they feel queasy about it, and can we refuse to take part in this? I mean, my view is that civil servants are there to serve the elected government of the day, and like it or not, this government was elected by our democratic system, and as were previous governments, and that's how it works, I'm afraid. And if you want to serve a government, then you have to do what you're told. But Home Office has many times been accused by previous Home Secretaries not being fit for purpose, and perhaps this is a bit of a clue as to why Priti Patel is having such a problem trying to deal with the migration crisis and reforming the asylum system, and why previous Home Secretaries have had a lot of trouble getting their job done.
It's the Sir Humphreys. We can go right back, can't we, 40 years to Yes Minister and Yes Prime Minister, and that's what happens behind the scenes.
Yeah, and still as funny and relevant and pertinent
Timeless,
today. I was watching one last week, and we'll go to the front page of the Times. PM promises another lockdown parties vote to delay danger. Tell us more, Elizabeth. Okay.
Well, you know what? I keep saying I'm not outraged that there was some cake and fizz served in Downing Street, a workplace, also a home, where people were working cheek to jowl, day in, day out, so that many of these people who are now getting outraged could sit at home on furlough, watching back-to-back box sets on Netflix and having Deliveroo bring them takeaways round. Yes, people suffered in lockdown, but also we were protected, and this number 10 was mission control, and I don't begrudge them some socialising. And I've written a list here of things that do outrage me. Waiting lists in the NHS, we're coming on to that while we're here this morning. Also in the NHS, all the women who've been damaged permanently and suffered agonising pain with wire mesh. The baby deaths, 200 dead babies, mothers in that same hospital ripped to shreds and ruined for life. Old people being shoved in care homes like sitting targets for COVID with lack of PPE. People who've lost loved ones on so-called smart motorways, which are now having to be reviewed. Current fuel prices. The oil price has gone down, but the petrol hasn't at the pumps, and the Chancellor's still carving off fuel duty and VAT, compounded by VAT on that. Gas, British Gas, also the standing charges on the electricity and gas bill have gone up, as well as the per unit of energy. Why? It's the same infrastructure, unjustifiable. Food shortages, I've noticed quite a few products missing off the shelves. And also the prices, like a bag of spinach was like 90p and it was £2.25 the other day. The police, going round investigating whether somebody had a piece of Victoria sponge when they can't attend if your car's vandalised or even if you're burgled. And all this hoo-ha over, immigration and the lack of control over our borders. Then, on the other hand, you've got people queuing 5 hours at mile-long queues in airports because there aren't enough border control staff and they've had to shift them to Dover, and so people going on that. I mean, there's so many things that are wrong and need attending to. And this is just a red herring, but actually it's just an undemocratic process where the opposition parties, Labour, SNP, Lib Dems, know they can't win a general election. The only chance they've got is to unseat Boris Johnson, who's the Tory vote catcher, and then they might have a hope in hell. And that's all this is about. And it's pathetic. Arguing on the TV over whether somebody had a piece of cake, a glass of Prosecco. We've got beer and pizza. I put a poll yesterday on Twitter. Which outrages you more? Prosecco and cake, beer and pizza. How about pizza and cake? What about if they had Prosecco and beer? And people took it seriously. It's just wrong.
OK.
Well, I tell you what also is wrong, and I'll just leave it at this, that someone dies and you can't be with them, or that you can't attend their funeral because of a law made by a man who's having Prosecco and cake.
No, OK, well, let's discuss that later, but I couldn't do that. My mum died in a care home and I hadn't seen her for 2 weeks, and she hadn't been seen by a doctor for 2 weeks. And I don't think that anything that happened I don't believe, if I did, I'd be angry, but I don't believe that anything that happened as far as people gathering socially in a workplace caused any more deaths than there were. I think a lot of things caused deaths during the pandemic.
To be continued.
Yeah.
To be continued. Should we talk, as you hinted about them, David, and finish on this one? In the Times, they're talking about waiting lists, particularly in relation to GPs. We're the worst in the West.
Yes, the government have pledged to have 6,000 more GPs by 2024. It looks like the government's going to miss that massively. We're now at a 25-year low of GPs. There's 800 surgeries have closed in the last 8 years, and there's a 6.2 million backlog of NHS treatment, and more people, it says in the Times, are turning to private medicine.
Could I ask a simple question, David? Why are they missing that target? What is the problem? Why aren't they encouraging young people, students, professionals to be doctors? What is the problem?
Well, they are. I mean, some people...
What, people don't want to do it, is that...
Very underqualified.
Yes, underqualified, and some of them are becoming trained as doctors, don't want to go into general practice. That's the problem. The last Labour government gave them great terms and conditions for doctors, no weekend surgeries, no nighttime calls.
But they've wrecked the pensions, haven't they?
And that's the problem.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows, and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.